Works and Capital Assets meeting of September 14th to order. Roll call.
Gail's here.
Marshall here.
Guzikowski here.
Seifert here.
Scally here.
All righty. Approval of minutes from 8/8/2023. Any comments or concerns or questions or changes? If not, motion to approve.
Marshall moves to approve the minutes of 8/8/23.
Scally seconds.
Roll call.
Gail, aye.
Marshall, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Scally, aye.
All righty. Review common council actions related to none. Okay, thank you. Number 5, consider a motion to approve progress payment number 5 to Howell Avenue Water Relay Project for A.W. Oaks and Sons in the amount of $407,634.79. Any comments or questions on that? Yeah, I got it. Pretty typical, it's a straightforward stuff that we've been doing, paying them.
Is there any outstanding work at this point? Looks great.
It's water, right?
They have only retainage left there, Max, or on that project? Is it? Yeah, I'll move to approve the progress payment number 5 for the Howell Avenue Water Relay Project to A.W. Oaks and Sons in the amount of $407,634.79.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Gail, aye.
Marshall, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Scally, aye.
Alrighty. Number 6, consider a motion to approve utility vouchers for payment in the amount of $1,426,346.15. Any comments or questions on that? If not, motion?
Seifert moves to approve the utility vouchers for the payment in the amount of $1,426,346.15.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Gail, aye.
Marshall, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Scally, aye.
Number 7, consider a motion to recommend to the Common Council and include various capital improvement plan for items in its 2024 CIP budget. Is there someone going to take the lead? Max? Awesome.
Thank you, Board. Max Gagan, Assistant City Administrator and Comptroller. So before you today is the recommended 2024 Capital Improvement Program. Just wanted to kind of walk through the spreadsheet. It's big, a lot of numbers, things of that nature, but a little bit different than past years. We used to have 3 or 4 spreadsheets that would kind of convey this information. You know, really took a step back to think about, is there a better way to present this for both administration and then our elected and appointed officials. So what you see here, and you can see it up on the screen too, I'll kind of just walk through it so you can better understand how things are laid out. If you have questions, feel free to stop me. So what you'll see, and this is the spreadsheet I'm looking at, is that all of the departments who proposed a project and then the project title, or you can find those on the left side. Each of the department requests are then subtotaled and then grand totaled at the bottom. We have a column that says prior years. So those are funds that were budgeted either in the 2023 CIP or prior. So some money that we have on hand for some of these projects in order to complete them. And it really just trying to give a full picture of some of these projects that are multi-year. And then you see things from the We Energies column all the way over to TID 13. So the dollar amounts in there are the allocations by funding source. So we used to look at that on a separate tab. So really just trying to look at this all at once. And then the total city funds column is a summation of everything that's included in the 2024 CIP that are city funds. And then we have a column that says non-city funding sources. So anything if we've gotten state, federal, or local grant dollars, we've had it in that column as well. And then you can kind of see a total project cost. So the way I read it is if you would do the prior year plus the total city funds plus the non-city funds, that's what's going to get you your total project cost. But what we're actually looking at for approving for the 2024 CIP is really the total city funds. And then you can see everything totaled at the bottom and how much that is. So total city funds in the CIP, about $6.3 million in whole. And then we did actually add some color coding this year, just trying to help facilitate this conversation. So the first color you'll see are items that are in like an orangish color. So those are just items we want to discuss in further detail. So once I get through with this, we'll then move on to facilitating that part of the conversation. Items that are in blue are reoccurring items. So those are all items that were in last year's CIP, sinking funds or annual projects. Certainly we can have a conversation about that, but if the board is comfortable with continuing on with those annual reoccurring projects, then maybe we want to just set those aside and just say, let's move those forward to the common council. And then everything that's highlighted in green are items where we've received either federal, state, or grant dollars. So really just wanted to point those out because it does include the construction of 2 bridges, significant funding for our streetlight LED project, and then redoing the police parking lot. So I want to highlight those because if a decision's made not to move forward with that, we would be foregoing essentially federal, state, or grant dollars. So just want to make the board aware of that because, again, if we are going to defer those types of projects, there's implications on other people's money.
Max, just from clarity, maybe to ease of discussion on the blue highlighted items, obviously the board is willing to, I think, continue with those as planned. Does the administration have any differing thoughts considering since they were passed last year on any of them? Otherwise, are we good to go?
Yeah, we're good to go on the blue.
Okay.
And then that's really it from a layout perspective. If you have questions on how this is formatted or how to read information, again, just let me know now. Otherwise, I think what we'll do is we can just start at the top and talk about things that are highlighted in our orange-red color. Some of them are kind of interrelated, so I can turn it over to Andrew and then facilitate which ones we want to talk about first.
Sure. So really the first 4 orange items are all interrelated. Well, they're all related to our SAP. The one, just dispense of this one real quickly, the Drexel Avenue streetscape, not actually related to the other 3, apologies on that. So we did not fund the Drexel Avenue streetscape for this year. And just some general messaging, we have a lot of work out there and we need to take a breath in 2024. So some of these discretionary things that are in our strategic action plan, we created a strategic action plan that goes for 5 years for a reason. We don't need to try to accomplish everything within the first 2 years of that. So one of these discretionary projects, purely discretionary, is the Drexel Avenue streetscape project, which we have designs for, and we're finalizing design right now for that phase. But the question comes into construction, and it relates to our SAP, and I just want to cite the SAP under our clean, safe, and welcoming critical success factor. Invest in aesthetic enhancements to convey a positive community image at city gateways and within major transportation and pedestrian corridors. So the Drexel streetscape, really the Drexel Gateway project, is a big one for us. We will be using for the majority, hopefully, tax increment district funding. So this is not a funding issue or the project is not with merit. It's just a timing issue, and we'll revisit it again in 25. And if we're ready to go, we can implement a phase one, and maybe that's 26, and that's okay. That's up to really the elected officials when we talk about next year at budget time, when we're updating our strategic action plan and we see the timing and the updates as to where everything's laid out, we can make that decision. But really cool project. Designs should be shelf ready within the next month or two, definitely by the end of the year. Just a timing issue on that one.
Andrew, Matt, you can interject too. How disruptive is it going to be to the traffic on Drexel when we're actually in this construction phase of this?
Well, with not knowing the extent and what's going to be implemented in those plans, I can't give you a straight answer. What I'll say is that you'll probably have one lane in each direction affected. And that would probably be standard, just so there would be some buffer while they're doing their work, and then they have lay down areas and places to work safely. So I would imagine one lane in each direction would be closed down in sections. Now,
Your
we can
plan
do-
for the lift station construction is
was
that
gonna
on
go
the
there, too.
table, or has that been scheduled or not?
It hasn't been finished or finalized yet. They've run into some issues. I'm still looking to probably have that started sometime this winter or early spring. That will affect just one lane at times.
Months,
Well, at time, it won't be a continual shutdown. It'll just be
Okay.
as needed.
right? And then, I know, Andrew, this came up yesterday. There's construction on 13th Street next year, right? Because this was Pewtz, I think, the discussion on Liberty.
Yeah. So we're moving along, which is great. So the reason we're holding off on the Liberty and Pewtz roundabout actual construction of that, the design should be ready to go. And we could let that in 2024 for sure, but we don't want to inconvenience the traveling public any more than we have to. We can get by another year with the current conditions and make that a 2025 project for that roundabout, because 13th Street is going to be under construction. People will be peeling off, and with the roundabout construction, Pewtz would be a full closure no go for, maybe 90 days, man, I think you said at one
Yeah,
point.
3 months.
So we don't want to create that additional impediment to the 13th Street project.
And isn't Howell due to be repaved next year?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know that that project's coming up, but it's more of a mill and overlay. It won't be a full reconstruction. I can verify that.
Thank you.
Question for Matt. Will 13th and Drexel, the construction, interfere a little bit? Will there be a problem with those two projects starting next year?
We don't have a project scheduled for Drexel at this point. If we're talking about the streetscape, we're
Okay.
holding off on that. The lift station, I think we can work with that. Your main impact is going to be north-south, obviously. So if traffic is heading east or west, we should be able to manage that. We can work with the county on that to make sure that our closures don't impact them. They'll have one lane in one direction only on 13th. I think that's the plan for right now. So it might be northbound for a portion of the project and then southbound. We haven't seen those final plans yet. That's typically how they've done it, kind of like how they did this section from Drexel to Rawson.
You have a timetable for Drexel Avenue?
No, we do not yet.
Thank you.
So I'll talk a little bit about the North Bluff Park design, the North Bluff stabilization and revetment, and North Bluff stabilization design on the Cornell and High Night sections, really as one whole idea or thought, and then I'll turn it over to Matt because I think we got to get into the particulars of this one pretty deeply. So in our strategic action plan, we have a goal to really implement the initial phases of the Lakefront Public Park project and Bluff project, but also to create a plan and a financial plan to carry forward that vision for the public amenities at the lakefront to completion by 2030. And here was another one where, We have a lot of transition that's going to take place in the planning department, community development department next year. We have a lot of work in the hopper with the bluff stability project and the revetment project. And we just did not want to confuse the issue or establish expectations too early. We already threw this visionary park plan out there. We need to, number one, the bluff revetment and the bluff stability is the foundation for all of the park. That's the foundation. So we got to get the foundation done. Let's make sure we do that right. We do that deliberately. Number two, we don't own any other portions of the High Night or Canal property specifically where we would be constructing and designing a park. So I think 2024, we'll be talking about acquiring those additional parklands for actually being able to then design and construct this park. And number three, just really probably the most critical piece of this. This is a very complicated arithmetic that we have to arrive at. So we had a great infusion of dollars in a really clever strategy, innovative strategy with TIF donations. Donations from Amazon, TID number 16 and some other districts, donating that money to the lakefront so we could initiate the main priority right now is stabilizing the bluff. Once the bluff goes in, you can't reconstruct it. So we want to focus on that in 2024, 2025. Probably 2025, we can have a discussion about designing, firm design on the park plan phase one. And by that time, then we can also look and carry out this tax increment district to kind of the end of it and have that financial plan. Probably need more donations from other districts. We have to look at the cash flow from the projects that are in the works in terms of, the increment creating projects like Lakeshore Commons and maybe what else is on the horizon. We need to take some inventory of the financial plan for this park. But certainly we know we're moving forward with the bluff stability and the revetment project, and that's going to be our focus in 24, 25. Hopefully. Before we turn it over to Matt for the particulars, and I think we should dig into the narrative of the bluff projects. Really important, really expensive, and absolutely imperative for the future of the lake.
Andrew, can I ask Max?
Yep.
Max, did we fund the stabilization and revetment project, 10 million plus? We funded that already? Or?
Yeah, we had a debt issuance earlier this year, and that's the amount that we have, plus any grant dollars. So the request is just the amount that's needed to complete the project, and then a portion to start designing the canal and High Night section. So those are funds on hand.
Is that a long-term piece of debt, or is that something that's going to be refied at the end of the project?
It was a note anticipation note, so we'll refinance it probably in 2 to 3 years.
Some are not.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll fill everybody else in. Take it over, Matt. Yeah.
Thank you. So currently, we are under construction on 2 projects out there, one being the revetment and stabilization of the bluff along Peter Cooper. That would be your bluff stabilization. The revetment actually goes from the water intake all the way to MMSD, so that includes the other 2 parcels that we're speaking about. Currently, we are up to the pump house, and the stone has been put in, so our revetment is in. I believe we're almost to full elevation on that. So they've moved along, the pump house has been removed. So we're at a standstill right now until we can get back in the water, which is in October 1st due to perch, lake perch. So we've kind of two months out where we could not be in the water. So starting October 1st, we'll be back onto that. And the goal is to get all the way to MMSD with a revetment and up to the point of starting the stabilization of Peter Cooper. The other project is the removal of the Peter Cooper vat house that is currently undergoing. We are probably halfway down with the structure itself. And we're looking to get into crushing of the existing concrete and brick out there probably by the end of this month going through October. So that's on schedule to be completed in October. So we're moving along quite well on both projects and where we're at. Move on to the particulars now for those two. So if you have any questions as we're going through this, please just ask them. More than happy to help you. So we'll go with the lower one, which is basically the design of the stabilization in front of High Nine Canal. So this project was kind of brought forward to us because we, at the time when we put our first project out, which was the one we're currently under, we did not have ownership of the two parcels. So we could not stabilize it. So we just worked within the water area, which was more of the revetment. So now what we're doing is we have to go through our design for the stabilization of those two bluffs, or those two properties, the bluffs on those two properties. So that's what the $150,000 is for. Following year, we'll be asking for the full construction money on that, which we're estimating anywhere from $2.5 to $3 million in that area. And we'll see how that goes. We do have a lot of soil left over, and that'll play into kind of our discussions as we move forward on the next item. So our bigger ask, which is $2.5 million, I believe, or 2.2 million, is for completing the project on the bluff stabilization. So as we've been going through this, the design had started about 2 years ago. So one of the major issues that they're finding out there is the change in the lake bed itself. So as you know, as you get different turbulences and wave action, the sand and the bottom of the floor changes, and it's very dynamic. So what we're finding is that we're getting a lot of what they call undulations, so a lot of holes in different areas which they didn't anticipate, which is a significant amount of additional stone, things along those lines that we're asking, or that we're trying to look forward to and trying to anticipate now. So we have done some surveys, underwater surveys, to get a better idea. That's how they kind of came up with some of the numbers. But the bigger one that we're dealing with at this point is the stability of the bluff itself. So the original design was placed where we were going to be placing stone up along the bluff, compacting it, and moving up in lifts. What we're finding and what we're experiencing out there currently right now is actually we're starting to get some of those larger and smaller sloughs as they're not even in that area. So the stabilization is eroding as we're working towards it. We just feel, and along with the contractor, feel that placing equipment and men right underneath that bluff and doing that type of work would just put them at pretty great danger, I guess. Whether it's a loss of equipment or life, I mean, that's a very practical thing that we have to worry about. So in working with the contractor, we've come up with a few methods in trying to approach this in a different way, which is, much more costly. So it's basically taking the stone and putting it on conveyor belts and kind of shooting it in and placing it that way. So we're using more of an open clear stone. That cost increases, the method increases. So the material itself with the amount of stone has increased, which is causing probably a significant amount of that cost. Luckily, we have Edgerton, who has been a very cooperative partner in this, and the DNR. So we've been looking at different methods on how to construct this to reduce the amount of stone, along with creating it in a safe manner. So the DNR has allowed us actually to pull back some of that bluff up on the top, being able to reduce the amount of stone. There's a lot of technical parts that come into this, but being able to work together, we've dropped that cost about $1.5 million from the initial thought process and the amount of cost. So as we're moving along, we're continually looking for ways to save money. So the 2.25 is our worst case scenario at this point. Obviously, as we continue to move along through the project, we as a team, being Edgerton ourselves and our consultant on board, is continually looking at how can we save money, what can we do, and we'll continue to do that obviously through this whole process. But it's a very difficult project, all the way from just laying the stone out along the entire revetment. It's not an easy ask for our contractors or ourselves to be able to basically estimate and project what we're going to be spending, but we have a pretty good handle on it now after we've gone through it for a little bit. But this is where we're at, so I'm open for any questions if you have them.
I have a question about security down there for the intake while construction's going on. Is there some type of security to to guard and protect that intake pump?
So we still have our security camera systems down there. Those haven't changed. We've added a few more just on our own project. But the security itself, as far as when the guys leave, that hasn't changed from when it previously was. So we still put the gates up, close the gates up on the top. They still have their fencing around their water intake. So that portion has not changed. We're being very, trying to be as thoughtful as we can on that, but we have added additional cameras just, you know, in concerns of people actually getting on our construction site, which we have found. People wander, people will do things, and it's pretty tough to control all of that, but we're doing the best we can out there with what we have.
I've been down there, so I don't have any concern about the intake. The gates are there. There is a plate, I don't know what it's called, the yellow plate.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't easily drive down there in a car if the gates open during the day.
And I'm not so worried about that. I'm just worried about strangers have a tendency to wander around in that area if they're with the construction people. You know, they've got time off maybe and so forth. And really, if you affect the intake down there, it affects the whole water system that we have.
Nothing has changed with the intake at all.
Yeah.
The access, ingress, egress is the same as if they were down there working and they left the gate open. We haven't done anything with their security themselves. We're actually basically come down and they come down there and they pull right off. We're not even hanging out anymore. There's no cars or any vehicles sitting up there as far as the staff for this. They're actually parking down on the stone now that they've created. So they actually have a nice pad that they can take their staff and their workers and get them away from the intake themselves. And it's very limited. From what I've been down there, we're probably seeing a total of 4 guys down there working for Edgerton. So it's very limited, just because of the process, you know, where you're bringing in one truck here or one truck there, you know, to have multiple staff members down there or construction workers, it wouldn't be cost effective for anybody.
And Fred, the people that would walk down there would have been able to walk down there before.
Yeah.
I can go all the way from Oakwood and walk all the way down to that area with no problem.
I just understand that, but because there's more activity now than there have been in the past, you know, we want to make sure that we do have security for that intake. And that's a vital part of our city. If that intake goes down, we're in trouble.
You know, certainly when we begin welcoming the public down there with the promenade, I think we're going to have to take a look at different things and additional things to do for that. I know Mike and Brian are thinking about that always. But also just more generally speaking, we are giving thought, and we will be planning a field trip to see the construction progress. Probably within the next month. We were trying to get the elected officials down to the site before our budget workshop in the first week of October. That's probably unlikely, but we will invite you guys as well to just go through and have a guided tour with the construction, the contractor. I think it'll be just really eye-opening, and you know, obviously we're talking about additional monies for the phase 1 of the project, but I think if you could get a better appreciation on scene of really how complicated this is, you know, we might appreciate it all the more. So we'll plan that, and we'll invite probably Bob Waka, the Plan Commission, and the council to get down there and have that guided tour that, you know, you've been down
I've
there
already had
every
it.
couple
I'll
weeks.
share my pictures after the meeting.
Yeah, pictures are good, but I think just seeing it, and by that time the Peter Cooper building should be down, so we'll kind of have that as a blank canvas. I think it'd be just a great opportunity for everybody.
And Fred, you know, we can continue to work with water and sewer. You know, we have a pretty close relationship as far as what their needs are for security. So I don't think that discussion is going to end. I think that's an ongoing discussion, and I think it's very important. You bring up a good point, and that always has to be in our forefront, especially once, like Andrew said, we start inviting public down there, like actually wanting them to be there. We really have to make sure that we do take care of our resources and our buildings within the city. So that has to be one of our main thoughts. And we also want it to look nice too. So a barbed wire fence is probably not the most, appealing for the general public. So, maybe there has to be other improvements there, but I think that's a discussion we need to have within, the next year or so. But yeah, it definitely needs to be there.
That's just one of the things that the utility was concerned about, was protecting that intake. And even the federal government recommended that you take precautions for any water type of treatment and so forth that you have.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Brian? Next.
CBA or chief?
Yeah, I think next we'll talk about the 2 fire department items. So, chief wants to come up.
All right, good morning. First item listed for discussion is self-contained breathing apparatus for the fire department. This past year, through the work of our program lead for PPE, identified that we were approaching the need to replace our existing self-contained breathing apparatus. They are over 11 years old and 2 NFPA cycles old. Basically, what that means with the NFPA cycles is that the safety requirements inherent in that equipment have changed through 2 cycles compared to when we purchased them previously. We applied for a grant for the purchase